May 8th, 2024. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to be your host. Tonight, I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclearproctologist.org. And you can call in to these live shows at 709-589-4406. We're in Canada. Let me apologize because I'm a Canadian. That's the right thing to do. So, this is the ELP system, February 11, 2013. And you can go read that. And this was, they had media in February 11, 2013 at the DECAY plant in Fukushima. And this is the water filtration system, if you're not familiar with it. And so this is 2 years later. So 3.5 years later, on August the 9th, they were assuming that they would have the system operational sometime before the end of 2014, which is over 3.5 years later. Now remember, the reactors melted down. Normally the reactors need 4,500 tons of water every minute. So 3.5 years later is an extraordinary amount of time. So not only was the airborne plume covering the planet, there was no filtration system whatsoever. And in 2013, there wasn't an academic or scientist on the planet that knew definitively, every university knew that the reactors and the fuel pools were gone, yet they still to today remain silent. So this industry has overstayed its welcome. Should the International Atomic Energy Agency and nuclear scientists who have sold us and the 8 million species out be put in a deep geological repository and sealed for 1 million years? Because what they done to us, yes, they should be. It's outrageous. If the world only understood how this works, you can't escape this. Everybody's affected by it. You got no choice but to make a stand. You might not appreciate it. You might, and you might not. I don't know. But I can guarantee you, definitively, that you are not escaping this. This is attacking your children, your friends, your families, your pets, your communities. This is wreaking havoc upon the 8 million species. And if you don't stand up, who exactly will do it? Because it ain't going to be the nuclear scientists. It ain't going to be the International Atomic Energy Agency. This is not a game. We're in the worst case scenario. And because you can't perceive it, you can't smell it or feel it or touch it or taste it or pick it up, you can't perceive it, you're lulled into this complacency, and you got to wake up. You got to come on board, and you got to get educated, and you got to learn how to defend yourself against this nasty, hateful, despicable, disgusting, sadistic industry. Small reactors don't add up as a viable energy source. Of course, there's nothing small about these things. Even the so-called small reactors, which don't exist, by the way, are massive. The ones they're planning on, like Rolls-Royce in the United Kingdom, their small modular reactors are actually the size of large reactors. They're just using the words. It's unbelievable. It's over 500 megawatts, which is equal to a lot of large nuclear reactors. So it's none of the attributes of a small modular reactor. They're doing that just to hoodwink you and lull you into guaranteeing there is no future for your loved ones, your children, or your grandchildren. It's time to make a stand. You got to make a stand. You're it. If you don't do it, nobody's going to do it. Proponents assert that small modular reactors would cost less to build and thus be more affordable. The proponents are the crazies. These are crazies. They don't give you a name. They don't give you an institution. They don't give you the attributes you normally would expect. However, when evaluated on the basis of cost per units of power capacity, the small modular reactors will actually be more expensive than a large reactor. The new scale reactors, the small modular reactor, for half a gigawatt would have been around $20 billion. $20 billion. And it's going to produce 5 times more fuel rods than when you scale up to the conventional reactors. It's going to produce 30 times more high-level waste, lethal by the liter walking past it. And it's going to produce 35 times more low-level waste, but which is still lethal to children and animals and plants and insects for billions of years. This industry has no accountability for 80 years. It has no checks and balances. It has no incentive not to be evil. So guess what happened? And 6 new-scale small modular reactors, 77 megawatts each in Idaho in the United States, were terminated. They ripped off all the investors. They've been at it for 18 years. They still haven't produced a single reactor. And all of these major players, the ones you're going to hear about if you go look them up, are these same people, these government entities that are branched off from the government and seen a way to steal and to smurf up your ability to have a renewable future. The problem with you can't have a renewable future and nuclear at the same time. They won't share grids. Not only that, they poison everything for millions of years. Once you take the fuel out of the fuel pool, it's hemorrhaging into the farms that they're surrounded by. They're all surrounded by farms. You really think the nuclear engineers don't know what they're doing? It's so insidious. It's unbelievable. It's actually unbelievable. And I think if we made a Hollywood type movie and it made it into all the theaters, I don't think people would still believe it. They can look it up themselves and see all these places, these nuclear plants surrounded by farms, but they still couldn't comprehend that the world is actually this evil. That this industry that is supposed to be coveted is an abomination upon humanity and the 8 million species. The final cost estimated project per megawatt was 250% more than the initial per megawatt cost for a 2,200 megawatt Volg nuclear power plant being built in Georgia, which is how far over budget? 3 times over budget. It took an extra 12 years to come to fruition, and even now it's got shaky feet. The high cost in constructing the small modular reactors, which has never been done, they don't exist. They don't have licenses into the regulatory agencies. It's the industry. It's like, it's drowning, and it's clawing on to humanity and all the species, and is drowning them in order to keep its head afloat. And it's going to translate into high electricity production costs forever. The ratepayers will be locked in while renewables you can do whatever nuclear small modular reactor dream could do, because it still doesn't exist. Geothermal could do better, sooner, quicker, easier, cheaper, with no issues. When you don't poison people for 1 million years, why would you look at the idiot nuclear industry for? Because you lulled into that complacency. Too much Spider-Man, too much Hulk, too much The Simpsons. The average person can't rationalize a typical sentence, for goodness sakes. The Australian energy market operator, the estimate cost of generating each megawatt hour electricity for a small modular reactor is around $400 Australian to $600 Australian. In comparison, renewables is around $100 Australian. The Russia KLT-40 took 13 years from when the construction started to when it started generating electricity, instead of the expected 3 years, 13 years, which was an icebreaker. Right, the first nuclear icebreaker, they dumped the reactor cores into the Arctic Ocean. And they're still sitting there today destroying the most pristine ecosystem imaginable. Hid away. Like, they got 18,000 dumps up there from the Soviet and the Russians. India Arctic Ocean, for goodness sakes. The production of radioactive waste has no demonstrated solution because of technical social challenges. Well, first off, like if you took 1,000 universities, put them to work on it and resolving it, they'd come up with a solution probably in 2 weeks. No one's trying to solve it. They don't want a solution. The Canadian Nuclear Waste Management Organization had $26 billion 18 years ago and still haven't dug a single hole anywhere. In 18 years. Not only that, there's been no interest on the $26 billion in 18 years. Well, at least none publicly. But you know they grew interest on it. They're just stealing it and using it for administration. And they're just living high, man. Throwing money around like they're the Saudis. Go up in Northern Ontario, just throwing millions of dollars around, going around driving, throwing money out of the window of a car. They're completely out of control. Put me in charge, and we'll stick the criminals in the jails, and we'll come up with a solution in less than a year. A real solution, not this idiot routine that they're doing. They're not trying to come up with a solution because all the nuclear fuel is still splitting atoms. In fact, we've got a story coming up after. We'll get to it. One 2022 study calculated various radioactive waste streams from small modular reactors would be larger than the corresponding waste streams from existing light water reactors. Oh, it was much worse than that. And they link you over to McFarland's, the former NRC, right, who had to leave America and go to Canada to get sanctuary from the nuclear industry. And she done a study which showed 5 times more fuel rods when you scale it up to a large reactor for the small modular reactors, 30 times more high-level waste, and 35 times more low but dangerous level waste than a conventional reactor. Not only that, the waste that they're producing is a high assay, high grade, 15% or higher, plutonium mixed oxide fuel. This stuff is unbelievable evil. When you take it out of the reactor, it's splitting atoms, and every single one is a hot particle. It'll destroy you. Each particle, a single atom, can destroy you, your children, your friends, animals, insects, birds, on a scale we've never seen. The DECAY collaboration identifies a rare nuclear decay and long-lived potassium isotope. It usually decays to a calcium-40, and about 10% of the time it decays to an argon-40. But its half-life is a multi-billion years, right? The results, it's completely harmless and innocuous and benign. We're already acclimated to it through genetics pure selection. It's stardust, right? Unlike the stuff from nuclear reactors, they're anthropogenic man-made isotopes, and we don't have an autoimmune trigger of any species on the planet. Not a single species has an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. And the industry knows this. Go back, watch my Chernobyl presentation on its anniversary a couple of weeks ago for the 38th anniversary, and I got around 400 studies there. And they know everything about nuclear, folks. And they know everything bad about it. That's all you can get out of it. There's no redeeming qualities to nuclear. I can't understand why the world is still in silence. This planet should be erupted by now in just absolute contempt for this industry. Finally, the results suggest that in the neutrino list, double beta decay occurs at lower than expected rates for nuclides of light elements. Wait for it. The KDK collaboration, of course, this is Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Do you have any concept of the pollution that they have put into the ecosystem, into the aquifers? It's monstrous. If me or you done it, they would produce 1,000 documentaries on how evil we actually are for doing something like it. They do it. They get awards. They give themselves bonuses. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory shouldn't exist. These are got no redeeming qualities. And they got all these special giggies and gadgets and everything else. They spend money at that place like there's no way to compare it. And talk about offsprings. They call the lethal emissions offsprings. The research was funded by the Department of Energy Office of Science, the Nuclear Physics Program, the Department of Homeland Security, the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada, the Queen's University of Canada, the McDonald Institute, and the National Science Foundation, just throwing money at this idiot machine that has destroyed the ecosystem and the environment for billions of years. Back to that story. The bottom line is that the new reactor designs like small modular reactors will not rescue nuclear power from its multiple problems, and any energy technology that is beset with such environmental problems and risk cannot be termed sustainable. The nuclear energy itself has been declining in its importance as a source of power. There is no importance as a weapons machine. The fuel cycle is about making plutonium. The power is a byproduct, and they hoodwinked you in the complacency by telling you it was power when it's simply about weapons. The fuel cycle. The fraction of the world's electricity supplied by nuclear reactors have declined from a maximum 17.5% in 96 to 9.2% in 2022. It's still going backwards. All indications suggest the trend will continue. If not, it will accelerate even worse. And nuclear reactors built during the last decade have all demonstrated a pattern of cost and time overruns in their construction. The Vogtle nuclear plant being built in Georgia involved 2 reactors designed to generate 1,100 megawatts of electricity each, is currently estimated to cost nearly US $35 billion. And when its original cost was supposed to be 14, it's an extra $21 billion. And its service date was supposed to be 2016 and 17. We're in 2024. In France, the 1,630 megawatt European pressurized reactor being built in Flamanville, we've covered hundreds of times, was originally estimated to cost 3 billion euros. This is how you do it over and over and over, isn't it? And projected to start in 2012. The cost soared to an estimated 13 billion euros and is yet to start operating as of March 2024. Right? Oh, we can do it for 3 billion. And now they got you on the hook. And now they just keep, the administration steals everything. 90% of the money goes to administration. That's why it costs so much. It's a total looting. As soon as they get the okay to build a reactor, it's a big celebration because now they're going to loot all the money they could ever spend. Stick it in their back pockets, go out and buy a whole bunch of race cars. I've talked to these creeps, eh? I had one guy last year was bragging to me last summer how he had 26 old supercars. So funny, I said, how many reactors have you built? He said, well, none. So he's just stealing all the money, and he just hung up on me. He's a loathsome person too, that guy. These cost increases and delays confirm the historical pattern identified in a study published in 2014 of the 180 nuclear power projects around the world as studied. 175 had exceeded their initial budgets by an average of 117%, for goodness sakes, and took 64% longer than initially projected. They know they can't come in at the time frame they do it. They know they won't get the money, they won't get the okay if they tell the truth. The first nuclear power reactor to provide electricity to the U.S. grid, the SM1, is delivered a lousy 1,750 kilowatts of electricity power and operated from 1957 to 1973. Its decommissioning, 50 years later, is underway, and it was reported last month it would be completed in about another 2 years, 3 years or so. And then it's been radiating the ecosystem for roughly 100 years. These are disease factories. What's so hard to understand about this? When you take the fuel out of the reactor after 14 months, you put it in the fuel, there's no containment, it's still splitting atoms for 1 billion years. Nuclear waste is dangerous, and they forget to tell you, because it's still splitting atoms. And you won't see them say it anywhere on the bloody planet. But that's why it's dangerous, because it's still splitting atoms on a scale that should terrify you, should mortify you, because there's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide hemorrhaging radiation to the ecosystem. The world will spit on us in the future. They'll curse us every day because we didn't do nothing. Well, me and a small group of people have. It was not so small. We sold almost 300 shirts of Calm Down Charlie, so I don't know. That's not very big even then, right? 300 people. But 300 educated people is enough to take down this industry, I can tell you that much. However, the recent projects are even more extreme in the magnitude of disconnect between expectations and reality. Even though you're only seeing 30 people, like you look at my show tonight, I got 17 people. On a show I've been doing for how long? No matter which show you do on YouTube, you typically got a couple of hundred people watching it when you're at it this long. For what it is, I'm censored because there is no dissenting voices allowed. And literally, you know, I should really be gone somewhere else. They literally hate our guts. They hate us with something, and we're not bad people for calling monsters monsters. We didn't do nothing wrong by doing the moral and ethical thing. We're not the monsters. We're not the ones who destroyed the ecosystem for 1 billion years. We're not the cowards who've destroyed the future of humanity and the 8 million species. However, the recent projects are even more extreme in the magnitude of disconnect between expectations and reality. These reactor projects, like the Hinkley Point project under construction, also confirmed another historical pattern. Cost of nuclear power plants go up with time, not down. And this is unlike any other technology, energy technology. Solar and wind energy have cost declined rapidly, unbelievably rapidly on top of that. But geothermal should be used first, and then you can back it up with wind and solar and storage, right? Because they work. And if you just had wind and solar across the whole country, and you done it right, the reason that'll power the country because it's always windy in most of the country. Yeah, you might have a little lull in the wind in certain communities, but the next communities are windy. The other community over here is windy. The other community over there is windy. But if you put geothermal in every one of these equations, that's the end of gas, oil, coal, and scumbag nuclear. And that's where we should be. The only reason we haven't got a future is because the nuclear industry would rather cook the entire fucking planet than let the humanity and the 8 million species have a future. They can't exist without cannibalizing everything and everybody and all the species. That's the only way to nuclear, and that's its legacy. Instead, invested in renewables, and the reduction in emissions from investing in renewables would be far quicker. India and the United States agreed to build 6 nuclear power plants in India. And I was like, why is this? There's a whole lot of stories showing up from years ago all of a sudden for the last couple of weeks, particularly with Yahoo. They're pumping out old stories all day now. And I won't even click on their stories anymore. This one's 2019. And just because they say they're going to build a nuclear reactor, that don't mean they're going to build it. This is the Canadian story. Nuclear Waste Management Organization. For 19 years have managed nothing. All they managed to do was spend all the interest on $26 billion. Instead of growing the money and putting it into the investments for the future, they're just ripping it off every year, every bit of it. How much money does $26 billion in interest grow a year? Because you know they got the best investments. You know they're not losing it. Where's that money going to? They haven't produced a fucking thing in 19 years. Nothing. They've been in one community for 14 years. Odd. Well, it's pretty good here. Well, here's $1 million. Leave me alone. Come back next year. I got some more for you. For 14 years, they've been doing this routine up there. Instead of putting nuclear waste and stopping it from splitting into the ecosystem, splitting atoms into the ecosystem, no intentions. Well, we're going to have a referendum, Dana. You haven't had a referendum, but any other thing in nuclear in human history, only something you know that the people, you throw money in one direction and the other direction gets nothing, so you know it's going to get voted down. And that's what you want. You don't want a solution. Because you can't loot the interest from $26 billion every year if you come up with a solution, can you? How is it even possible that they have the arrogance, that kind of hubris, to call themselves a waste organization when they haven't managed anything? They managed to steal the massive interest in $26 billion every year. It's never moved. $26 billion. If I had $26 billion, that's going to grow like shit every year, right? You can get stuff done. And not even spend the capital. Just live off the interest, run the whole operation off the interest. You can get things done. No, they want to put it right into a farmland, right smack in the best farmland you got in that part of the country. Because they know ultimately that'll get voted down, and they're not interested in coming up with a solution. They want to play this game out for thousands of years. You might think I'm kidding, but I'm not. Chief Turtle and the other chiefs in the Land Defense Alliance, like Mayor Bagri, the head of the local government, to the editor, I was honored and humbled to attend the First Nations Land Defense Alliance rally against the nuclear disease factory in Thunder Bay in April the 30th. Informed of passionate speakers from communities at risk with the Nuclear Waste Management Organization. Now, I should have been there, right? We talked about this a few weeks back. I should have been up there. But I've been ostracized from everything in the nuclear discussion for so many years. They don't want a real narrative. They don't want anybody that could tell the true story anywhere near them. I mean, you know, their spokesperson was saying if a truck full of nuclear fuel rod tips over and spills the fuel rods, it's not a big deal because they can just pick it back up, put it back in the container, and continue on their way. This is the most insane, ludicrous, monstrous assertion conceivable. As soon as it's exposed to air, it catches fire, for goodness sakes. And the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, which is run by the nut job, the retarded nuclear industry, likes to say that the solid radioactive pellets they wish to bury pose no risk to the waterways, and it simply isn't so. It's splitting atoms. You can't ship it in a containment and then open that containment up. It doesn't work that way because it'll detonate. When the oxygen floods back in, it's going to detonate. So everything is vented. And then when they get there, they're going to repackage everything in this 1 square kilometer facility. A 1 square kilometer facility surrounded by prime farmland. As far as the eye can see from a helicopter. You know what they're up to? They're the stupidest scumbags imaginable. This is why they get the job, because they're scumbags. No intentions of coming up with a solution. Zero intentions. $26 billion and you haven't come up with a solution in 19 years? You're a fucking scumbag. That's not up for debate. Chief Turtle's community of grassy knolls is well known, or have people forgotten, for the calamitous mercury contamination of his waterway by the industry's effluences, allowed to flow into the Wilbigoo, and I apologize for butchering any names, river system a short way upstream, brought to light in the 1970s. And they love attacking the native communities, water and land and precious areas. Community residents continue to suffer the devastating effect today, and mercury has no mercy whatsoever, right? They hid it for many decades. The Nuclear Waste Management Organization now proposes to site its experimental nuclear disease factory, guess where? At the headwaters of the Wabigu River system upstream from Grassy Narrow. It's unbelievable that this industry is able to exist. But in a quote from the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, local communication manager Vince Panka, that despicable, disgusting Panka, hang on there, just bear with me. Well, let me show you what he said there a few weeks ago. Let me see if I can find it. I got it. I just want to get his name there. There we go. This is what Vince said. The Regional Communication Manager for Nuclear Waste Management Organization says the organization was aware of the protest, blah, 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 blah. He said no one has ever been harmed in Canada or around the world by used nuclear fuel. All the used nuclear fuel that's imposed, the majority of it, is splitting atoms into the ecosystem. And each of these plants are surrounded by farms, so they're hammered. And you're poisoning people by the millions every single day. Like, you know, you got a reactor core. It's boiling water that powers a million people's homes and businesses. It does that by splitting atoms and boiling water. So how much atoms you got to split to boil a cup of water? It's an absurd amount. Each atom is lethal to everything with replicating cells. Once you take it out of the reactor core and put it in the fuel pool, it still does that. And there's no containment. So you got 1,000 fuel pools plus worldwide. Each one is boiling off about 120,000 liters in a 24-hour period. Each liter is completely saturated with the isotopes. So the water droplets got just hideous doses into it. And that's going to fall into farmer fields for the first 40, 50 miles. The rest of it now is going to be carried right around the entire planet and attack everything with replicating cells. This has been going on for 80 years. So, like, to say something like that is unbelievably insidious. But he said that if they had an accident, it's very easy to find, it's easy to collect, and you can put it into a container and be on our way with very little impact on the environment, which is simply not true. If you got fuel rods landing on the road, you don't go there and pick up jack shit. You run away and you don't go back. Nobody can go in there and pick up a fucking fuel rod. And Vince should get one shoved up his... Vince Panka is your worst enemy. That is an enemy of humanity to say something like that. It's a complete misrepresentation of every facet of the truth. The Nuclear Waste Management Organization is offering the Alliance a chance to discuss the important technical matters with an office person. No, Vince Panka is a monster, and he's not an office person, he's an actual monster. And no matter who you talk from the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, they're not going to fucking tell you what I told you tonight. If you're smart, you fly me up there. Whose only job is to advertise his employer's project, for shame, indeed. Wild Theory claims alien and UFOs flew over Fukushima nuclear disaster and saved mankind. Ho ho! So this is fun. First off, nothing saved Fukushima. Fukushima melted down. All 4 reactors. The plume covered the entire planet. It wiped out the majority of the insects in the first decade, and it's never going to stop. There was no UFOs to save humanity. This is TEPCO's numbers of the Neptunium-239 dispersals. Covering the entire planet. Pulsing energy almost at the speed of light. And so if you look at it for 80 years, that's called climate change, right? This is 19 days, 468 hours, 19.5 days of emissions from Fukushima covering the entire friggin' planet. You really think this is going to turn out good? And they're going to lowball the numbers. But don't forget, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags and 3% of the land. Don't forget that there was 150,000 sites of these one-ton bags. In 2019, they had them conglomerated to 105,000 sites. 105,000 sites. This industry is only good at destroying everything. That's all it's good at. It has not a single redeeming quality left that we can find. Nothing. It destroys your health in the hospitals and kills your loved ones. And yet you keep taking them there because you refuse to realize that these are monsters. You refuse to accept that these people are monsters. Like, sure, the International Atomic Energy Agency started claiming this never even happened. Last year started claiming that it never released any emissions whatsoever. And what it did was in 1,000 tanks. At what point, because at some point you're going to have to make a stand. At some point you're going to have to say, well, you know, I can't sit in silence anymore. At some point you're going to have to grow up and you're going to have to deal with this. Because your children are not going to have any future. You're going to have to liquidate your assets to give your children an extra few years in the near future. Because you won't stand up. I'm doing the best I can. Everybody that here regularly is doing the best they can. I know there's other sites that are reposting my video besides YouTube, right? And it has for many years. A bizarre theory that claimed aliens and UFOs could save lives after a tragedy struck the Fukushima nuclear plant in 2011 will make you question your belief in extraterrestrial lives. Japan is known for alleged UFO sightings in nuclear base sites. Well, I think I figured out what this story was actually all about. Many believe it was the aliens and supposed UFOs that protected them when the country witnessed one of its worst nuclear disasters ever. And so it wasn't a UFO that they were seeing, it was a neutron, the neutron beams. Right? Because these reactors had neutron beams shining up, right? In fact, they seemed to shine in Tokyo, 240 kilometers away. And so then the industry loves to pin it on a UFO. Let's throw a big turd in the fucking punch bowl, right? Several alleged witnesses have claimed they saw spacecraft hover over the affected regions. And so the shine might look like that from a distance, see? Because it reflects off the clouds and that. And the supposed light that emitted from the unidentified flying object saved lives by minimizing the impact of the radioactive energy that leaked everywhere. It's not radioactive energy that leaked everywhere, it's radioactive fallout. It's physical atoms. The future generation is going to want to skin all of these people alive. They're going to change the laws in their country so that anything pro-nuclear can be skinned alive. Mark my words, that is coming. A Japanese monk notes in a Netflix docuseries, Encounters, the radioactive energy was leaking everywhere. Not radioactive energy leaking. these reactors detonated, for goodness sakes. And so Netflix is putting out stories saying that people were saved by UFOs on Netflix. My goodness. The videos on TikTok also show alleged UFOs focusing beams of lights over the nuclear plant, with some claim to date neutralize the situation. Yeah? Anybody who writes a story like this are so evil because of the harm that they're doing. We haven't got time to play these games. We've got to come up with solutions. So the best solution I can come up with is, let's put them all in a deep geological repository and seal it for 1 million years. That's a good solution. Let's get them off our fucking planet anyway, or something. Let's stick them in a cannon and shoot them up. Maybe a UFO can snatch them out of the fucking ear and take them somewhere else. I like it. Beams of light over the nuclear plant. This was neutron, the gamma shines, the beta rays, focusing beams of light over the nuclear plant. That's your daily dose of stupid right there, folks. The libs failed to put up a united front on energy. Like, first off, the energy department has been captured by the nuclear industry a long time ago in Australia, everywhere else. And the Australian, just disgusting. The disgusting Australian medias, the Australian government, they're literally they're just disgusting. And like, that poor country, the wonderful people in that poor country have been barbarized by this monstrosity known as a government. They call themselves a government, but they're just the British colony, right? And this pig right there, and this other idiot machine right there. 15 or 20 years, because they're screaming because somebody said it will take 15 or 20 years before you can get power in Australia from nuclear. Because of the constraints, the time it costs, they don't have the technology, they never built one, blah, blah, blah. And they're right to say it. And everybody, like, you're sabotaging the party's ambitions to have nuclear in Australia. Well, there's a law in Australia, first off, that you're not allowed to have nuclear power because former senators and Congress people there acknowledged that nuclear power is not even a great, big, stupid disease factory. So in the meantime, here in New South Wales, we should be going ahead with our electricity roadmap, right? Which heavily reliance on renewables. Australia is perfect for renewables, the deserts in particular, but it's perfect for storage because it has the deserts, because you can make incredible storage from sand, and it has a perfect spot for geothermal, for goodness sakes. And their media is literally something out of a cartoon where you're like, please, this can't be real. But all their media is the exact same. Look at them all. And Sky News, of course, is so pro-nuclear, they don't even know what human life value actually is anymore. They're so switched off. The people that they put in positions of authority there are the pro-nuclear idiot machines. It's humiliating. Do the owners have enough money to decommission 3 Mile Island? It's an interesting story. Now, why would you ask that question? 3 Mile Island's at it again. But now 3 Mile Island, they irradiated over 2 million people. They admit that. But they said it was equal to watching color television for an extra year. Which has nothing to do with radioactive fallout, by the way. And get me, color television back then was pretty nasty. But you turn it on, you turn it off, right? You get the radiation in your body's pulsing energy every second. Your body attacks it for the rest of your life with white blood cells on a level you can't comprehend. If you're new around here anyway. And it's downhill from there. That's the problem with nuclear. It never goes away. It's relentless. It hates you and it hates your body. Your body responds viciously to it for the rest of your life. And the more white blood cells you produce, the less red blood cells with oxygen nutrition you're producing. So if you're eating food from around a nuclear power plant or you're breathing the air within 100 miles of a nuclear power plant, you're nothing but bioaccumulation machine for anthropogenic man-made radiation. And that's the worst case scenario. This is an industry that shouldn't exist. This industry has no right to be on our planet. Estimates for the cost of decommissioning of north of $1 billion for a single reactor site. Good luck. In 2022, something happened to these trust funds, because a nuclear plant has a trust fund to gather up money. A percentage of it goes into a trust for when the time comes to decommission these disease factories, which a lot of times takes 60 years. There's a lot of money, right? But the money's been disappearing. Millions of dollars, in one case $253 million dropped off the balance sheet. And the companies like, guess who? Chris Singh's company, Holtec, reported the amount spent on decommissioning and reports the trust balance, but the balance dropped in all cases more than the actual money spent. And the infamous 3 Mile Island site is home to one of these reactors. In 2022, the designated trust fund lost $134 million. The NRC, who's supposed to be paying attention, has appeared to let the company continue to avoid providing adequate financial assurances. Because they were kicking back to them or what? So the latest from Ukraine is there's over 900 dead people a day in that. And most of the people in Ukraine are conscripts. They're just jacking them off the street. Anybody see the videos of them just going out, just grabbing people off the fucking street? People coming out of the shop. They're using teenage girls. They're using children with Down syndrome, for fuck's sakes, on the front lines. Calling it a war. This is NATO. NATO's loving every second of it. They don't have to be there themselves. They supply all these hideous, monstrous weapons that would typically be banned anywhere. Beyond comprehension, while Finland is planning 100,000 years into the future. No, they're not. And this story has got an insane statement into it. The facility is intended to last 1 million years. Like somewhere in the next 50 or 100 years is going to melt down. That's what happens to this stuff. You leave it alone, it melts down. And it doesn't need oxygen. So it's going to consume all the steel, the rebar, the cement, the rocks. It's literally going to consume everything above it at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And so Buddy asked him, he said, how long the facility remains safe if due to some unforeseen future calamity and there was no one left to maintain it. He said, if there is nobody in Scandinavia or Finland, then in fact, who would care? Because apparently only Scandinavia and Finland are the only people that are allowed to cure. What a disgusting statement. That's an insane statement. This is the guy that's in charge. He said, well, if there's nobody in Scandinavia or Finland, then who would care if it got loose? Just every species that could have lived here for another 1 billion years would, but now don't have the opportunity anymore. And they're going to put all their nuclear waste into one spot. So when something melts down, the rest of it melts down too. And it'll all melt down at some point. And some of that is going to find its way to the surface. Some of that is going to find water. And you put all the clay you want around it, but some of it's going to find water. Water expands 1,200 feet per liter. The bedrock into which is built 1,900 million years old, so it's relatively stable. It doesn't give a fuck how stable it is. The fuel is not stable. The fuel at some point is going to melt down because you're not dealing with it. You can't say, and then they're talking about using the same as the Canadians, where they're going to use these canisters with 1 millimeter or something of copper on it. Well, the Wigner effect is going to eat through no matter what you put there. Right? The neutron bombardment, the beta rays, the gamma shines, the X-rays are going to wreck no matter what you try to encase it in. It doesn't give a shit about anything. It wins every friggin' battle. And so to suggest that because the ground is stable, there's no earthquakes maybe or something like that, that simply doesn't matter. You can't just put it there and walk away from it. That's not the solution. They got 50 miles to make it, that's 50 miles of tunnels there, Dan. Nothing can possibly go wrong. It's far away from humans. And it's on an island. So once it melts down, gets out of control, then that salt water pours in. You are going to cook the planet. And there's going to be no one, you're not going to be there for people to point fingers at. You're not going to be there to be held accountable, so you don't give a fuck. But what a despicable statement. Well, if there's no one there, then it doesn't matter. Of course it fucking matters. What about the others, the 8 million species? What about the future of humanity? And to suggest that it's a stable area, somehow that mitigates the reality. And you bring all the useful idiots in there who don't know nothing. Give them a hat, give them a puke green vest to put on, some safety glasses, and a free pass, free hotel room, free meals, free flights, and send them back to their country. Say, see, everything is nice. Well, it looked really good to me, like a big tunnel. When are we going to stop pretending this is not happening to us? Federal Environmental Minister, nuclear power is too expensive, too protracted, and this is the Germany, I think it is. Yeah, German. The Traffic Light Coalition does not want to get back into nuclear power. It's too expensive, takes too long, and it's stupid. Risky. The USS Miami. Oh, we missed a headline for that story. So a famous singer just had a nuclear sub sponsored. What a tremendous honor to be named a sponsor of the newest USS Miami. Thank you, Secretary of Monsters. For this incredible surprise, and let the tradition and celebration continue, the Cuban-born artist inaugural concert of Fleet Week in Miami. What is it, 18 rapes in the military every fucking day? Oh, no, that's suicides, right? When should they go to another country and kill that country and kill all the young children and women? Because that's what they kill. When should they go to another country and rape all the women, create some resistance? Because that's how they create resistance. They go into a country, rape all the women, rape all the young girls. And so the uncles and brothers and parents will come back and try to attack. And they say, we got strong resistance over there. They went to Iraq and they fired 5.5 million rounds a month for 9 years. 5.5 million rounds a month. It's not counting the ordnance. 5.5 million rounds a month for 9 years. To get 10,000 Taliban. You want to do the math on that? Somebody want to do the fucking math on that? 5.5 million rounds a month for 9 years. I made a video 14 or 15 years ago about it. Let me see if I can find it, actually. Oh, I don't know if that'll work. Oh, yeah, that works. This is a video about the invasion. You're going against people that have nothing. They fired 5.5 million rounds a month in Afghanistan and Iraq for 9 years. You got millions dead, millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for, 6 million orphans, to get 10,000 Taliban. You destroyed the entire crop of the country, and only Monsanto was allowed to grow there for the next 20 years. You got rid of the pensions and the patents of the country. You done all of that to get 10,000 Taliban that you never got. I'll adjust the volume.
Peace hopes fade in the last hours before the deadline.
Everybody in the world watched the moment approach with a kind of dread.
It was time for the ground troops to liberate Kuwait.
We don't know if President Bush read his horoscope on deadline day.
It has to be very difficult to be an Iraqi soldier and sit there night after night, day after day, and endure the pounding that he's taken.
We have no argument with the people of Iraq.
We struck all day and all night.
For the innocents caught in this conflict, I pray for their safety.
The coalition averaged 1 bombing mission per minute. Allied bombing was relentless.
It was extremely demoralizing.
By the B-52s, the F-16s, the A-10s, in bringing large amounts of munitions to bear against him.
Vividly described by one of the POWs, said the airplane that they feared most on the front lines were the A-10s because their accuracy, using the POW's words,
absolutely phenomenal.
They never missed.
Of course, but we have not heard, I think it's important to stress,
1 bombing mission per minute.
Every minute of the hour.
the men and women of CBS News Worldwide are standing by to bring you reliable, responsible, and steady coverage, day or night, of developments in the Gulf and to do their best to explain them.
There, and it happens to be in an area where civilians live. It would still be important, I believe, for the United States to take that out.
I hate to interrupt you, General, but there are air raid sirens in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. That is the largest U.S. base. We're going to go to Bob Simon in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. Bob?
Dan, I don't know how good this audio is, but the siren started about 30 seconds ago.
Well, Cheryl, it was almost exactly 2 hours ago when the sirens went off here in Saudi Arabia. Where we are in eastern Saudi Arabia, there was no problem. Let me just size my mask and fit it for a second, just like I always do. Stand by, please.
Oh, I'd say... I have to apologize for that. I caught a whiff of something and felt momentarily dizzy. You're more experienced in military affairs than I am.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Oh, I love this country so much.
You guys just don't have a clue.
Good night, Charles.
Good night, Dan. Good night, Leslie.
Night, gentlemen.
Night, Ben.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Dana. Newberry Schoolboys Dance Group to present. I had a hard time with that story. And so their dance company is nuclear. This is United Kingdom, I think, is it? Nuclear industry has destroyed everything. Cultures, food, insects, oceans, fresh water. The enormous risk and uncertain benefits of an Israeli strike against the Iran nuclear facility. Iran spanked them really good with 300 Scuds and missiles and drones. And they landed all over the place. The media come out and pretended it didn't, but you look up the footage, you'll see it yourself on BitChute. It landed everywhere. And the thing is, right, because there were all this rhetoric, we should attack their nuclear reactor in Iran. I can tell you right fucking now, if you attack Iran's nuclear, they're going to attack the Dimona nuclear power plant in Israel. And bye-bye Israel then, and everybody else. Iran's unprecedented attack on Israel. Iran was responding to an attack from Israel. Israel had been attacking Iran. Israel has got the British, the American, and the French has 49 bases around Iran for the last 50 years on their borders. Iran hasn't attacked anybody in 50 years. For the first time, a declared and extensive Iranian military operation was carried out on the Israeli territory. For the first time, Israel has been attacking them relentlessly, assassinating their scientists relentlessly. And so they strike back now. Israel's crying and screeching and whining and sniveling. Now the decision how to respond rests with Israel. They already responded. Everything they shot was shot down. It wasn't, they never even tried. It was just meant to get some street creds back in their own eyes. A direct war between the two countries now no longer seems unlikely. Israel can't win a war against a country with jets and a navy and a military and an air force. Israel wouldn't know how to fucking fight a fight like that. They're only used to fighting against the Palestinians who can't fight back, who don't have jets, who don't have drones, who don't have helicopters, who don't have a navy, don't have 4,000 tanks, don't have the artillery, don't have a... And Israel's the fourth biggest weapon producer. Right? They're very complacent. They're only used to shooting fish in a barrel. The minute they go up against a real country, they're done. They don't have what it takes, right? They're only used to exterminating people that can't fight back. That's all they're good at. They're good at nothing else. There's no evidence to suggest they can win a fight. Not only that, if he attacks Iran's nuke plant, fucking well, Iran, as I already told them, we're gonna wreck yours too, you pieces of shit. I like Jews. I got friends of mine that are Jewish from years ago. And they can't stand Israel. Israel's insane. Israel's attack, Iran's unprecedented attack on... It was Israel, when they attacked Damascus, the Damascus embassy, Iran's embassy in Damascus, that's the only reason Iran turned around and attacked them. Israel started it, as usual. The fucking whining, sniveling, child-like creatures they are. In Israel, there's a strong focus on Iran's intention and willingness to risk a direct confrontation. Iran will wipe out Israel in no time at all. Israel, we're going to use nuclear. That's their only salvation. We're going to use nuclear. We'll get other countries to fight for us because we can't fucking fight our own fights. And they're talking about Israel attacking a nuclear plant to show who's who. That'll be the end of Israel. Israel can't fight a real fucking army. And they know they can't. And that's why they didn't do nothing. Taxpayers to fund fast-track nuclear fusion reactors. Way to go, United Kingdom. She's like, yeah, well, we can do whatever we want. We're the government. And so this is quite scary, really. Pioneering nuclear fusion, they're at least 50 years away from it. Or 1,000 years, who knows? They're at least 50 years. And renewables are going to curb stomp the shit out of them before that. I mean, last year there was 1.7 gigawatts of nuclear went backwards, which is 2 large reactors. And it was 507 gigawatts of renewables came online, which is equal to 570 large nuclear reactors coming online in 12 months. How the fuck is nuclear or fusion going to compete against that? It's all about not coming up with solutions. That's why they're doing these routines, right? Pioneer nuclear fusion power plants to be fast-tracked through the planning process and supported with taxpayers' money. Britain's got no money left. The country's full of invaders now. Half the country is invaders of military age. As Britain attempts to become a world leader in the technology. Britain can't even build their own fucking reactors. France has to build them for them. France can't even build them. How the hell is Britain can't build anything? Right? It's been destroyed by so many years of the inbreeds. Under new proposals by the government, commercial fusion reactors will be exempt from the usual planning rules governing nuclear power stations. And they're doing the same thing for the small modular reactor. But you can throw all the fucking money you got at it. They can't do it. You can give them every break, you can get rid of all the rules. They still can't accomplish it. The nuclear industry is completely incompetent. Worldwide, we see the same attribute. It's completely incompetent. There's zero possibilities of bringing anything to fruition unless you triple the original cost and extend it out to 3 times the original length. But when it comes to fusion, they're no closer than anybody else. We go through this all the time. I don't see any breakthroughs in fusion, let alone in fucking Britain. One of the major changes will be to class nuclear fusion reactors as nationally significant infrastructure projects. You can go ahead and do whatever you want. But through all the money you got in the country, you still can't bring it to fruition. You can't solve that riddle. And one of the reasons they can't solve the riddle is because they're such an inbreeded group of people in the nuclear industry that they won't let anything new come in, see? And if you do, they'll steal the idea, but because they didn't create the idea, they don't know how to make it work. The nuclear industry, British nuclear, and I've said this how many times? Several thousand times at least in the last couple of years, that the British nuclear industry is pointless. They're literally pointless. And they got all the reactors, the majority of the reactors are going to be turned off in 2 years. And now they're going to jump on board and try to salvage it. But they're not even trying to build their own reactors. They got France doing it. France can't even build the reactors that they're trying to build right now. And the ones they're trying to build right now are so disproportionate. Oh, by the way, they're all surrounded by farmland. With ministers deciding if they should go ahead and preventing local authorities from scrutinizing them. So there'll be no oversight. Nobody's allowed to scrutinize them. They're going to be given all the money they want. They're going to be given all the breaks they need. There's going to be no checks and fucking balances. And guess what? They still can't bring it to fruition. So the inbreeding has made them incompetent. All they can do is steal money. So this is strictly about stealing money, but it's not about actual infrastructure. It's like when I read the story, I blew up laughing. It's so ridiculous. To suggest that Britain is going to be the pioneer of fucking fusion or anything else, nuclear. It's absurd to suggest it. It's an insult to suggest that. With the ministers, and these chicken neck ministers, right, the good old boys club, there's zero possibility they're going to come up with anything original. Like, it's laughable on a whole different scale that they're going to come up with something. A spokesperson for the Energy Department said fusion will not be subject to a nuclear site license process in the same way as a nuclear fission reactor facility due to the fundamental differences in technology, process, and levels of hazards. Like, you're cooking these things at 300 million degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And they got themselves convinced, they told a lie so many times, they got themselves convinced that they can shut the reactor down. You can't shut fuck all down at 300 million degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And if it goes wrong, it's going to be a detonation. Because that's what that temperature dictates. You can pretend all you want that I'm wrong, but that's the reality of science. You can't just switch it off like you're claiming. Oh, we can switch it off in a millisecond, right? Do you remember how many times we told that story? How many times have we regurgitated their narrative in stories? It's simply, it's not even, it's so disconnected from the reality of what we're talking about. And like, they get the world's biggest magnets, and that's going to hold the plasma. That's just a fucking pipe dream. There's no science that that's going to work. They haven't made it work. They haven't come close to making it fucking work. Or we can use artificial intelligence. That'll get the kinks out of the system. No, you got to have some foundation for the artificial intelligence to work with. It needs some foundation first. And fission doesn't have the fusion doesn't have a foundation, and that the design they're working on is from 1904. And they admit that it's highly unlikely that the magnets are going to work. So if the magnets don't fucking work, because nothing can contain 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures right today. So what the fuck is going to contain 300 million degree Fahrenheit temperatures? Is there anybody on the planet that really wants to have an actual conversation? Or are we just going to keep living in fantasies every day? And if you took half the fucking energy you're putting into this, you could have geothermal everywhere done. Walk away and get on with your fucking lives. You're going to keep this stupid, idiot, moronic, dummy, useful idiots. You got enough useful idiots. That doesn't mean you're going to fucking accomplish anything. Oh, we're going to get the giggling pin in the fucking laughing shaft. And fusion will pop out the fucking arse of the chicken later next week, like an egg used to. The government wants to award the contracts worth hundreds of millions of pounds by next year for a technology that they don't even have an application into the regulatory agencies for the licensing. They're going to build a prototype of something that they don't even have a design. And there's 20 companies popped up in the last 3 years. All of them got different designs. All of them making promises they can't keep, and a lot of them on the stock market, and they're just ripping off the complacent investors. The benefits of fusion energy for the UK not only includes potential for low carbon, like fucking geothermal got better potential because it's real, it's tangible, it actually exists, it's everywhere, it's at your fucking fingertips. And if we took half the fucking energy you're putting into this idiot machine and done it to geothermal, that'll be the end of your problems. You can have geothermal anywhere, you just got to drill deep enough. And now you can do it many different ways, right? You can use 25,000 pounds per square inch water jets to cut up the rocks down deep. And then you can use pneumatic hammers to beat the shit out of them. And then the drill bit can go deep enough to tap into huge temperatures that are hotter than what you're going to get from nuclear, gas, oil, or coal. So anything nuclear, gas, and oil and coal can do, geothermal can do better. Period. And at some point, that will be the dominant energy worldwide, will be geothermal. Every community will have a geothermal well. Every community. Because that's the one that makes sense. It's stupid. Anybody can build it. The local contractors can look at some schematics. The engineer can design it out, and they can give it to someone who can bid on it. You don't have to store nuclear waste for a fucking million years. This industry is your Achilles heel for your future. You can't have a future and nuclear and fusion. You just can't have it together. Fusion uses high temperatures, pressures to heat hydrogen atoms into plasma, but like you're talking about a design like the sun. So the sun can expel the excess millions of miles into space and suck it back in, and that's how it works. We can't do that on fucking Earth. And if it happens to us on Earth, that's goodbye. We're going to split Earth in two at some point. Like they were talking about using matter and antimatter. You know, if you bring them together, they annihilate each other spectacularly, worse than thermonuclear, right? And some scientists years ago were postulating that a gram of it would crack the moon in two. And these morons, these inbreeds, are in a position to play around with that stuff. Is the most frightening thing conceivable. The extreme temperatures needed to create the fusion plasma would melt all known materials. Like 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures will melt all known materials. 300 million degree Fahrenheit temperatures will fuck up Earth. Boil all the water off the planet. Andrew Bowie, the nuclear minister. Remember the clips of him from Constipated Party, Conference Party 28 last year? We went to the podium to give his speech and he talked about Homer Simpson. The B2 spirit. Something goes out and destroys with nuclear weapons capable of destroying 1 million people. And they call it Spirit. Nuclear bomber will receive the latest stupid bomb. Yay. It's better to kill the whole planet than have these planes not have everything they need, right? It is superior. It can penetrate 100 feet of soil and 18 feet of reinforced concrete. Whoopie fucking do. And how many children had to die for that to fucking exist? How many people had to do without schools and hospitals and healthcare so that can fucking exist that you can't ever use? When you're going to grow up and get rid of this idiot machine? Because when you got all of this stuff, then you got to have a war to fuck with it, right? We got some pictures and videos. That's the show for tonight. Short show tonight, a long day. Let me explain. We raised another 200 last night. James Lucid went to war for us again last night. And so I picked up, you can see the basket there. I picked up an extra grinder tank. And I'll show you pictures of that in a minute. We picked up a 6-inch brushes for the grinder, the tabletop grinder. Because one side got the grinder. I wanted the other side to be a steel brush. But I forgot it was an 8-inch, not a 6-inch. But I got it on sale, so I'm going to use it. I picked up another one of them because they're really good. Because we got 3 trailers, right? I got a shackle, snatch block, finally. A 5,000-pound, 2.5-ton snatch block for $24, half price. So super happy with that. I got some more paint. I got another pump for $10 for... You can't use gasoline, but you can pump diesel. You can pump other stuff with it. It's basically going to be... it won't be for gas, let's put it that way, right? I got a couple more metal cutters because I'm going to need them for the work I got to do. We went and picked up, I'm going to play a video for you in a second. Went back into town and picked up the U-bolt kit for the axles. It turns out they're about an inch, 3/4 of an inch too short. Oops. So I got to go back in and spend more money tomorrow because we got good weather tomorrow. I got to shoot in and exchange that. It's not that much more money. I got to shoot in and exchange it and get the 7,000-pound axle kit. Because the springs I'm using are the old springs. It's not their springs. And the springs I'm using are much bigger. And so I can resolve that by going back into the city tomorrow. I'm just going to shoot in on the bike because we got good weather tomorrow. And because it's 100 kilometers or whatever, right? So I'll go in on the motorcycle with the backpack, bring that in, exchange it, come back out, and get to work. Because I was going to assemble everything today and start welding. And I was hoping to have that video for everybody tonight. Instead, I got this video. Oh, it's not tall enough. Right? It's got to come up through them. I got to go back and get longer ones. Son of a gun, eh? I was just going to bolt everything up. I just got home from the city. Just going to bolt everything up. I was going to bolt everything up and then weld these guys onto the side. Right? So they were going to get weld on. Or whatever. Yeah, weld on. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that because it's 72 inches instead of 68. And so it's going to have to fit on out here somewhere. I'll figure it out. Oh, look at that. It doesn't fit there either. That one fits. Oh, I see. Because then I got 4 of them, right? And so they're probably 2 different widths up there. That one won't fit. That one fits there. Yeah, but the other one uses the shackle, right? So it'll work. I was just It'll fit up there because of
when I was doing it.
Because you got 4 of these, right? For the back part.
I forgot that's what I had in the end of the video. I should have watched it. It's okay.
Oh, well.
We'll get it.
I might as well try to figure out how to weld these in it.
I'm going to have to put a cantilever.
Go back in place down and then bolt it together and stick it on.
I'll get it.
Oh well, that's the way it plays out.
Yeah, that's the way it plays out. So now we got the 3 grinders, one for... I'm loving this, eh? So we got the grinder, then we got the heavy duty steel, knotted steel wire, and then we got the flap disc on the other one. Because that's what you're going to do. You're going to hit it with the... You're going to hit it with the knotted steel wire. Then you're going to hit it with the grinder. And then you're going to come in with the flap disc and finish it off. And so I'm going to take those, is the plan when I get back tomorrow. And the cutoff, the metal cutoff, is 0.045 by 7/8, and then I'm going to take those shackles because I got 2 sets of them. I'm going to clean them up so I can weld them on the side of it to mount. Where are we to here? Yeah, to mount these. So in order to mount them, I need a cantilever, so to speak, to give them extra strength because they're going to be on the outside. Because the original axles were 50 years old or something, are 64 or 68 inch, but I couldn't get a 68 inch axle without spending $800. So I settled for 72 inch, which takes me to the outside. And so I just got to make some adjustments. So I think I got that figured out. And I was wondering where am I going to get the metal that I need for it. I need heavy metal for it. And I was looking at that stuff. Once I cleaned that up with the equipment that we got, I cleaned it up pretty good. And so pretty happy about that. Just a temporary delay that happens. And so I'll back into the city tomorrow. I'll exchange them for the longer ones, for the 7,000 pound axles. And come out and then start assembling that tomorrow. Hopefully that plays out. Or the next day at the latest. And it'll be, hopefully I can just do the job by the next day.
Oh, this world is at a tremble with its strength and mighty power.
Okay, so let's close the poll down. We haven't seen Stephen Young in several days. So hopefully Stephen's doing okay. I think he's probably suffering from the infusions. And because Stephen's pretty dependable, right? But he's been so sick for the last 3 years. Okay, let's close the poll down. I kind of overspent today because I wasn't expecting to have to go back into the city. So I bought the extra stuff. Oops. Well, I don't regret it. Should the International Atomic Energy Agency and the nuclear scientists be put into a deep geological repository and have it sealed for 1 million years? And everybody agreed. Look at that. Somebody accidentally hit no, but everybody agreed. Okay, have a great night. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Take care, folks. See you on the other side.
Hiroshima, Nagasaki paid a big price for their sin. When scourged from the face of earth, their battle could not win. But on that day of judgment, when comes a greater power, we will not know the minute, and we'll not know the hour. Atomic power!